You're listening to Kicking It with the Koves. Do you have a problem with it?
No, Sensei!
I mean, no, Dad.
No, Dad.
Hi, everyone. I'm Martin Kove, Sensei John Kreese from the Cobra Kai and Karate Kid trilogy. Welcome to Kicking It with the Koves. It's a new podcast that I'm hosting with my own kids, Rachel and Jesse Kove.
And I'm Rachel Kove. I'm a mental health expert, and we're going to unpack all the issues that you see the characters go through in Cobra Kai, like bullying, depression, personal development. We're going to have expert guests on here who's going to help us unpack and deal with all those real-life issues.
We're also going to talk about current events, life,
personal
in general.
development.
It's very exciting, and we also just want to talk about our family a little bit and welcome you, get a little slice of the Kove family here.
And we're going to talk about Season 1, Episode 1. Right now. It was wonderful, and we all watched it again last night. And a lot of introductions. The writers did so well with introducing so many aspects of what they're trying to, develop, all in about 38 minutes, you know.
It's amazing how fast the episodes go. It's always like, you're always sitting there wanting more. What was even funnier too was that we watched they did the I think we watched episode 1 of season 4 as well, and it was so funny to go back and see episode 1 season 1 after watching episode 1 of season 4 of Cobra Kai and where the characters are gone. And there really was, like you said, so much groundwork that was laid down at the beginning. You know, they had so much to set up, seeing Johnny again, Billy Zabka and Daniel, Ralph Macchio, and where they're at in the world. And they you know what they do? I love that they open up the show with, the flashback to the All Valley tournament, in 80?
It would have been 84 at the release of the movie.
Right. And I think they actually went into, like, the salt mines and got footage that had never been seen before that they added in there, a couple different angles, right? And of Johnny getting kicked and some other footage that we'd never seen before. And then, of course, it opens up to, I think it's Johnny on the floor, isn't it?
Yeah, it's him on the floor, like, is it 30 years later?
34 years
34 years later. The scene they open up with, I think, is one of the best scenes of the original film, The Karate Kid, where you go, finish him! Which is just, it's like it rattles your bones when you say that line.
It really is such a groundbreaking scene.
I mean, yeah, to this day, I get emotional.
Yeah, because the music on top of that, and and then you're literally shouting. I mean, wasn't everybody cheering in that day?
But when we did it, we actually raised the volume of it so you can hear "Finish Him" on the dubbing stage. So, in other words, "Finish him" wasn't loud enough, and for the moments you're talking about. And so you're expressing exactly the right thing. John Evelson said it's not loud enough for all the feelings that are going on. And everybody getting chills and, screaming and yelling. And yet I said, finish him. But it wasn't loud enough because everyone else was screaming at the moment. So when we looped it and we just went back there and I said, I did it a couple of times, finish him loud to the scene on the screen. And everybody remembers that. And it was really dubbed in the stage. When we originally acted it, it was too low. And I think it might have been something like, finish him! Like I said it to myself. And finish him! Like that, gripping your fists. And then ultimately, it wasn't loud enough because everybody else was screaming. So John brought me into the stage and said, I want this really loud. Louder than you did it. What you did was right, but I want it to be louder so it's more memorable.
Oh my God! It was as if like you were like, it was like kill him.
Yeah, it was like yeah. It was.
It was like you better finish him or I'm gonna kill you.
But that's how I feel like John Kreese is. He looks at everything as a battle to the death.
Yeah, I guess it is a level. Each conflict, I think, has a certain amount of weight. And last night watching, this comes out after season 4 is shown. So last night watching the conspirator to conspire to bring in Terry Silver, because he feels a little. He does feel a little. He can't afford to lose, but he does feel a bit threatened, and he needs a partner. And going out and getting Terry Silver after 30 years of absence is a very big challenge for him, And yes, he does have that weight on his shoulders now of having to win this time versus 34 years ago, which he also thought that he would win the tournament.
Well, I think that's what's so genius about this show is, as an adult watching Cobra Kai, you're like, come on, 34 years later, you're still upset about a karate tournament?
Yes.
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 And that's what's funny is that I think people think that you just get over things as you grow up, and it's not true. It's that moment, which is why when Johnny wakes up 34 years later, you see how his life has really changed for the worse for him. He wakes up 34 years later and he has all these flashbacks in season 1, episode 1, where he's remembering all of the good times with Allie, and he's remembering being the star karate player, the star karate athlete. He's the most popular guy in school. He is the woman of his dreams. And then all of a sudden, Daniel LaRusso comes to town. And then he has a flashback of being beat up by Mr. Miyagi. And then he has a flashback of you really verbally, not you, Marty, but you as John Kreese, verbally assaulting him in the parking lot and bullying him for losing. And those words, actually wrote it down here because I think those words really stayed with him. You said, "You're nothing, you're lost, you're a loser," because he lost a tournament. I mean, and those words, I think, were really ingrained in his brain because his actions for the next 34 years were nothing like his actions and behaviors before that. He started to do it. Johnny is now working as
he's a carpenter.
He's a carpenter, a plumber, I think, too, right? Or
I mean, he's not even a good carpenter.
Yeah.
He's just trying to do some stuff.
Yeah, and obviously he's suffering with some alcohol abuse, and he wakes up in the morning and the first thing he drinks is beer, and then he's miserable and he goes to this job that he hates, and then he comes home and he does it all over again. He loses his job. He loses his job because he's not very kind to the person he's trying to hang a TV for, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, you just see him miserable. And I think this is something that a lot of people struggle with, is just having this dream and this idea of what you thought life was going to be like, and then it wasn't that way. And I think that's how the show evolves, as you see Johnny stepping into a sense of responsibility by when he meets Miguel at the apartment complex, and he watches Miguel get beat up at the liquor store, which I loved that scene. Did you love that scene, Dad?
Yeah, I love that scene.
When he's like, the karate never left him.
It's also funny because he's kicking kids, but you're also like kind of rooting for him at the same time because these kids are like such assholes. You're like,
Such
you know what?
assholes.
Maybe these guys deserve a kick to the face, and they really were terrible. But yeah, I mean, it was very funny the way they did the whole concept with that.
They weren't just terrible. And the characters, they're cruel and unconscious. There was it's such a small note from the scene, but it was something that really impacted me, was when Johnny was walking out of the liquor store and the kid is vaping and he blows it in Johnny's face.
Right.
There's just no respect.
Yeah.
There's no respect there. And I think, one, I do think that's a problem with adolescence. But two, I think that's, you see the mentality of these quote unquote bullies, that they're unconscious and they're not aware of how their behavior impacts others. And then you see them pick on Miguel and your heart sinks a lot. And then the only reason Johnny actually got mad really was because they hit his car.
Right. He didn't even really care about Miguel. It was just more of like, get your hands off my car. You'll scratch the already rusted paint.
Yeah.
I think he would have ultimately, a few moments later, stood up for Miguel.
Oh, of
because
course.
he was putting the glances in, and when the kid was getting a rough time, he does have a sense, not up front, but he does have a sense of compassion, for the underdog, because he is the underdog, and he knows what it's like. He knows what it's like.
Did they ever send you the script for season? Did they ever send you the episodes of season 1, or they just sent you the script for the scene you had at the end of the
They
season?
didn't send me the earlier stuff. When I want to, they said you're coming in on episode 10, and I think no. I believe that they were keeping everything under wraps. In fact, when I went there to shoot my episode 10, I had to hide. I couldn't, because they were shooting the tournament scene there, and they didn't want anyone to know that I would be.
Right, you're even in the
I was
state.
in the end, being at the end of that episode, and they didn't want to show. I had to hide in my hotel room, and I was instructed to stay there for a couple of days, and not go out, because he said some kids might be walking in the mall or nearby the hotel, and
They
would
would
put
know.
2 and 2 together, who might be, because they had several hundred people there as extras. So anybody could have been around the hotel or seen me, and then they put 2 and 2 together, because there's so many avid fans around. So here I was in Atlanta, just hibernating, keeping John Kreese quiet, and but I kind of knew the script was very good, and I knew exactly what was going on. But that was episode 10. When I revisit 1, 2, and 3 now, it's much harder, I think, and the writing has to be so specific so that everybody gets and remembers what is going on, so we can piece it together as you go on to season 2 and 3 and 4. Because you're absolutely right, what you said earlier, that it's the groundwork done, and then to see it, groundwork done in season 1, and then to see how it pans out in season 4, it's incredible.
I remember when I came to visit you when you were shooting season 4, and I said to myself, because I remember you and Thomas Ian Griffith were rehearsing in your apartment down there, and I remember thinking to myself, boy, you guys cannot even walk anywhere together, get a coffee, nothing. I mean, if people saw the two of you guys walking around the streets of Atlanta, they would just, they'd go crazy. They would, they would, you just had, again, you had to hide. You guys couldn't be together in public at all. You guys had to completely be separated. And I remember watching you guys rehearse scene in your apartment together, and I remember I was just sitting there, and I thought to myself, man, this is really cool. Watching you guys rehearse some of the stuff, I felt very privileged to be able to, just kind of be a fly on the wall and watch you guys work. It was pretty amazing.
I don't remember. When did you first find out about Cobra Kai, Dad?
When I had lunch with a dinner with the writers, and Billy had told me about this. And so this would have been 3-4 years ago, and we were doing, I think it was an autograph show, and he told me about it. It was in September, and of that year, and he said, then they want you to come and join us, but you're not going to show up until the end of season 1, and they'll tell you all about it. And I said, well, all right. So I made a phone call and got together with, Josh, Hayden, and John, and we sat and we had dinner, and everything I wanted to do with the character, to, in a sense of vulnerability and background and flashbacks, they already had thought out, figured it all out way before I made my notes. And they said, just be patient. We're going to bring you in, and then you're going to set up season 2 by your presence and what you do, and you show up in the dojo in episode 10, season 1. And of course, my reaction was, why can't I come in earlier? And they said, no, you're going to set up season 2. We just want you to come in 10, and then you'll be a regular on the show.
I feel like I feel like they're always setting you up at the end of every episode. 10 is always a cliffhanger with you in some way or another, along with everybody else. But somehow I feel like they come back to you because there's always some scheme or some plan.
Do you remember when you auditioned for John Kreese?
Certainly.
Can you share that story?
This is a fun one.
I love this story because essentially the reason you have John Kreese is a character you booked is because our mother.
And taking risks. Taking risks
like like we always talk about, but she was the one that really kind of motivated you, right? Because of the real life circumstances.
Yes, it was it was very, very good advice from your mother. And they'd give me the script, and they said you have an entire week. It was on Monday. And Carol Jones was the casting woman, and she said, we'll call you in. You'll probably meet the director on Friday. I said, oh, great. So I have a week with the script. The very next morning, I get a phone call, and she said, John Avildsen wants to see you at noon.
Oh, boy.
Literally, Tuesday. So I was livid, just livid. I hadn't done any work on the script. And so your mother said to me, you know all that anger and venom that you feel right now for these people, use it in the scene. So that scene that I auditioned was up and down the aisles of the dojo. Mercy is for the weak, here and on the streets. Somebody confronts you, and he's basically bellowing and very angry. And it was just his way of making sure they understood the information, the students. And she said, use all that venom and go in there and tell them what you think of them. So I went in, I went to the interview, and I met John Avildsen. And in order to get myself as pumped up as I was back in the apartment with your mother in the house there, I berated them. So I would say, you're a real asshole, John Avildsen. We wait for years to meet directors of your caliber, and here you give me 1 day prep, and you're an asshole too, Carol Jones. And I trusted you to give me a whole week prepping with this scene. You are the worst. Mercy is for the weak. And I went right into it after berating these people.
They were captivated.
They loved it. And he just let me run with it. And he said, you're great. I'm sending you to Jerry Weintraub. Send me to Jerry Weintraub. Jerry Weintraub came in 4 days late to the appointment. It was a Monday appointment or something. And he came in like Thursday. And I was on pins and needles. And I did the same thing to him. I said, Jerry, you're a real asshole. And so are you, Carol Jones. You're 4 days late to this appointment. Mercy is for the weak here.
Do you think you would have, do you think you would have said those things had you, that was part of this character, right? Like you kind of had to be this authoritative, scary man, right? Do you think you would have said those things? Do you think you would have been terrified to say those things if it wasn't for this character?
I've done that a few times, and it doesn't work sometimes. It was a movie of the week, I think. It was a HBO movie, and I berated the director. Didn't work. He kicked me out of the room, actually. But it was that Bobby Seale story.
Oh, right.
And it was one that Jim produced. Anyway, sometimes it's appropriate and sometimes not. Years ago, you could bring a gun, prop gun, to an interview just to get a feel of it. And, if you were playing a heavy or something, I know actors who did that. And now you could never do that. It's not appropriate. But, I was doing, I was kind of secure enough at that point. I was doing Cagney and Lacey at the time, and we were on hiatus when they were shooting Karate Kid 1. And I actually had nothing to lose. I was doing a TV series. And that mindset is the appropriate mindset to have as an actor when you go into a part. Willing to lose it, just go in there and devil may care and do what you feel is right.
That's so true, Dad. Even a lot of people like Robert Downey Jr. have talked about. I've watched videos, and even Bryan Cranston, I think, talks about you just go in that room and you just have to you just do your character, and you have to not care about what's at stake and getting the part or whatever. You just have to be that character. You did your job, you showed up, and that's it. You can't think about it anymore. And that usually I feel like when you do that, which I do in the past, that to me is some of the best work comes out of it because you're not thinking about all the other stuff.
Exactly.
You're not thinking about the money. You're not thinking about the career. You're just thinking about the actual work, which is hard. It's hard, too.
It's very hard if you imagine not caring for 10 minutes and then really when you walk out kind of caring, because you look back in retrospect and you say, it'd be great to have this part. To Billy the Kid and be in this Western and, Spielberg producing and blah, blah, blah. And, and then you don't get it because they're hiring out of Canada, So you have so little control, but if you can turn it off as an artist and just go and do your thing at these audition processes, which is, they're the roughest in the world, and I feel for everyone. You know, I think you can have a greater level of success. But yes, that did help a great deal. Your mother's advice, use all the venom that you feel for these people.
I think if I'm ever upset at anyone, I'm just going to yell at them and then go, "Mercy is for the weak," here and on the streets, and they'll be like, "Oh, that's from Karate Kid." I'm like, yes.
Why do you think the movie means so much to people? I mean, it's very hard to take a film like that and turn it into such a success like Cobra Kai. And I remember, I know I've heard you say this, you know, and I know I've heard a lot of other actors say this when they are kind of bringing back an original show or original film. They're afraid of ruining it in a sense. And I know a lot of people have said that to me. They were afraid that it was going to take away from the beauty and the power of the original film of The Karate Kid. But I really feel like this show has just added so much. Wouldn't you think? Don't you think?
Of course, because it's gone into so many levels of the characters. You're allowed, let's just say each show is an hour, you're allowed 10 hours a year to develop each character. You know, you can get further into the vulnerability and what's precious to that character, what is, in essence, all the characteristics that make someone interesting, you now can develop and write about. In a movie, you're given 2 hours, most of the time even less. And in a film, the character, you can only show maybe 3 qualities of this character, you know? And
You don't have enough time to show the other stuff.
there's too many characters. There's just too many characters. And you can't devote more than exposing 3 elements of his personality at most. And if I was really writing, it's probably even less, because you've got to develop each one of those characteristics into the scenario of the show. So in essence, when you bring someone into your living room, a TV series, like, you know, Magnum P.I. or Cagney and Lacey, you bring these people in and you befriend them. You bring them in, you're allowing them to come into your living room, in your TV, and you're watching basically once a week these new friends, you know? And they become friends. And that's the difference between the mystique that goes on the big screen, where you go there and you only see it once. And you see these incredible characters just big on the screen. That's why Jack Nicholson and so many, and Sean Connery, they're bigger than life, these people, because you're experiencing them on a giant movie screen. And they're big in your heart.
I love going to the movies because I'm also not on my phone my damn phone that is attached to my hand 24/7. And I feel like obviously that I mean that's another conversation, but I feel like you're saying, the movie experience, theater experience is the best way to watch film and television.
It takes you into escapism, and you sort of capitalize on the experience of being alone with these giant movie stars. And that's the difference between being a movie star and a television star, is that you invite those other people into your home. The movie stars, like Sean Connery and people that stayed and didn't do television, stayed as big as life.
Yeah.
You know? And that's also, to add to why that movie became popular, is because we saw it on the big screen in 1984. We didn't watch it on TV. We watched it on TV to fortify some of the things we thought about. You know, the love affair. Did he really love Allie that much as Johnny? And what was Johnny's problem? You get to study a show when you watch it on the small screen, and you can play it again and again and again. And certainly when a show's on once a week, you like Cobra Kai, you get to see a variety of aspects of each character.
Well, I think what's interesting is the entire film of The Karate Kid is about an underdog fighting for his dreams, fighting for his power. I think that's what he's doing. He's fighting for his power. He's fighting for his sense of empowerment. And I think that's what's happening in Cobra Kai, which is ironic, is that Billy is now kind of the underdog. Johnny is now the underdog in a sense, fighting for his life again, fighting for what he wants to do in his life, fighting for his son, fighting for now he wants to become the sensei. And that's what you see at the end of episode 1. You see him making that decision. You see him making that decision to say, I'm going to do something with my life. I don't believe that people become depressed overnight. People don't become depressed overnight. People don't feel a sense of futility or uselessness overnight. It's a buildup of not taking action towards your dream. It's a buildup of not taking action towards something that you love, because then you just feel like your life is meaningless. And I do believe we're all here for a purpose. And you see throughout the season when Johnny starts to feel like he's contributing to the world by contributing to Miguel and contributing to these students, you see him light up. You see his spirit,
his purpose.
And there's I know I've talked about this before, but there's this famous psychologist. His name is Erik Erikson, and he talked about the stages of development in a human psyche. So there's there's development of 0 to 1, and then 1 to 5. I'm probably messing up these age ranges, and then you have 1 to 8, and then 8 to 18, and you're building your sense of self and your identity in those stages. And from the age of 18 to 65, what's happening is you're trying to figure out how you're contributing to the world, how your life means something. What have you done while you're here? And a lot of clients I've worked with, half the time they are depressed is because they don't know how they're contributing. They don't know what their life means. They don't know what they're doing with their life. They don't know why they're here. And once they start finding out what that is, they start to feel fulfilled. They start getting excited to wake up. You see it in the episode, right? You see him go from waking up, drinking beer, having flashbacks of you yelling at him in the parking lot, getting his car wrecked, seeing Daniel LaRusso again, seeing this guy that he thinks took away everything from him. And then by the end of the episode, you see him, he's watching that movie on his couch, and you hear this. Is it
Iron Eagle or something?
Yeah, is it Iron Eagle? And I think he said something, there's the voice on the screen, and it says something like, God wouldn't give you something unless he intended you to use it for something. So God wouldn't give you this talent unless he anticipated you to use it as a gift to the world, as a way to be of service to the world in some way. And so he's remembering, oh my God, what karate gave to me. It gave me this, it gave me that. I want to give this to Miguel. And that's how the episode ends. The episode ends with him saying, I'm going to be your sensei. Right?
Yeah. Love that.
And didn't you get the chills?
Of course.
Jesse and I we are as equally passionate about this show as any other fan out there. Not because you're in it, Dad, but because of what this show means. I remember, this show, it makes you feel excited about wanting to tackle life. Life is hard. Life sucks sometimes. And when you watch a show like this, it reminds you, yeah, it sucks and it's difficult, but you can always make a decision to wake up and do something different. And that's what I love that he did.
And it's real. It's not also politically correct. It's not very PC, which is always, it's not always, excuse me. One of the things I love about the show is that it's not, very PC. It kind of breaks the rules a bit. Which I think people, every time I've brought that up to people, they love it. Breaks the barriers. Like you said, Rachel, life is not perfect. It sucks. It's hard. And I think being real with people that way is a great thing, and people really relate to that. They're like, yes, he really said what he meant, and he told that guy he's an idiot, and he, and that girl slapped this person because he was being mean to her or whatever. And I feel like good for them for being able to do that and take that risk, in the world we're in right now, which is, very, I feel kind of boxed in a way, So I feel like it's just great that they break through the roof that way and they're able to, talk to people and you really don't know what's going to happen because it is on the edge.
Yeah, it's definitely on the edge. I think that's what makes it so popular, and it targets the original fan base, a little bit of the older generation with the Karate Kid, and then it targets the younger population of high school students, which I think is why it's written so brilliantly. And the other thing that I think about when I watch it is that like you said, Jesse, life is hard. And I think what's happening now in the world is we're getting more okay with talking about that. We're getting more okay with talking about the difficulties of life. And instead of trying to reach this perfect idea of what life should be, we're really talking about more of the process. And the process of someone going from lack of confidence to all of a sudden feeling a sense of empowerment, it takes time. And that's what the whole show is. You see the developments of these characters like Hawk. You see the development of, later characters like Peyton. And you see what people go through, what they go through to get to where they are. And it takes a lot of work. It doesn't just happen overnight. It takes, I'm going to steal from Johnny, but you get kicked in the balls a lot. You do. You get kicked in the balls a lot. And it's like, how do I get kicked in the balls and then get back up again? One of the other things I love that I hope people can see is that when you see Johnny's driving drunk, right? He's this adult man driving drunk, which is not something anyone really wants to do.
I will say the montage for that sequence was probably one of my favorites in the entire show.
It's brilliant.
It's just the music, which was incredible, and then showing, pieces of you, Dad, in there from his glory days when he was in Cobra Kai, was just, it just felt so amazing and cool, and also reminded you, it was like dangling that, like, that piece of meat in front of you, like, oh, John Kreese, that the Karate Kid, that nostalgia again, which just like you can just kind of taste it. It's so palpable, and that sequence was just amazing.
It was amazing. I really have never seen a show do what these writers have done, where they've blended in the 80s film to modern day things that people are going through. And I just what something I really wanted to bring up that I really saw in this episode was when you see Johnny in that montage scene remembering things from the past. Again, those were 34 years ago, but they're still impacting him today. And I think that people should really understand that just because stuff happened in your childhood or stuff happened in your teen years or stuff happened a lot earlier in life, it doesn't mean that you're over it. He's still not over what happened to him 34 years ago. So it's about, how do I work through that, right? And part of how he's choosing to work through that is to come back and to build his life back up again, and to not let whatever happened to him design the rest of his life.
It's so true. I just thought about how for the adults in the show, it's all about unresolved issues.
Yes.
And for the kids, it's about resolving new issues.
Absolutely.
Right? The things that they haven't experienced yet, and then for the adults, it's all their regrets or things that they didn't resolve yet that they're trying to fight for. It's pretty amazing.
Right, because it's like showing you that if these kids don't work through their problems now, they will become their parents 36 years.
Yeah.
And I think you don't have to get over things. It's how do you get through things? And then you cannot always control what happens to you in life, but you can always control how you respond to it. And that's what I love about this show is bullying has been a problem since the dawn of time. And the sense of power and control, loss of power and control is been around. I mean, we're animals. Like, we're born to survive. So if you have more power over me, I'm going to die. So this show is all about building a sense of power within you. And that's why it is so appealing to people.
And balance.
And balance. Power. Jock power. Power and balance.
Yeah, it's pretty, all the different messages. It's really amazing. And also, I love talking about, too, how the show, you see it in the first episode. There's no explosions. There's no guns. There's no crazy action. There's no superheroes flying in from the sky, which I love all those things. I also love Harry Potter. But there's no, there's none of that kind of, extroverted, like, special effects stuff that you would kind of get from seeing, maybe a Marvel movie or whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's just the characters, like you said, dealing with life, getting kicked in the balls. Sorry, I keep saying that. I just think it's just it's like a reference that, like, it's just the truth of what it is.
I don't think you have to be sorry.
Okay. then I'm not sorry. And I think that's one of the great aspects of the show is that it's just so real and it is just true to life. And it also goes back to a time which is also an amazing time. Why do people love the 80s so much? What is it about the 80s that people can never get over?
What do you think that is, Dad?
Well, there were so many memories, escapism memories, and so many wonderful experiences of that period of time. Artistically, I'm sure if I really answered that question like in an hour, I could think of all the great rock and roll that came out, all the great musical songs. The ones I remember mostly were there's great soundtracks to Back to the Future, as that movie came out, which was monumental. Ghostbusters came out in the 80s, which was incredible music and wonderful, funny story. And then, of course, Karate Kid came out, and there was so much, and we had 3 Karate Kid movies in the 80s. You had one in 86, Karate Kid 2, and then you had one in 89, and that was Karate Kid 3. Karate Kid 3 basically was a bittersweet experience for me because I couldn't do everything written for Terry Silver was actually my vehicle. It was all written for me. And
but you had a conflict, right? They had to fill that space in because you were contracted on another show or something.
Yeah, I got Hard Time on Planet Earth on this TV series, so I couldn't do Karate Kid 3, which was shifted from, it was a writer's strike, and it was shifted 3 months later, and I was doing a series, and I felt terrible. It was a bittersweet experience. So they had to recreate a new character to do the sting operation and train Mike Barnes and Ralph Macchio basically in Karate Kid 3. And it was my vehicle. And I was very excited about it because the writer had said, Karate Kid 3 is about you. And
you could expand, you could see more expansion of the character.
Yeah,
right?
Totally. And, and I couldn't do it. So I would read the other actors and then go off into my car and cry, and then go back and read them, and because I felt like I let Jerry Weintraub and John Avildsen let them down. And my agent always said to me, I'll get you out of this series so you can do the Karate Kid 3, and he never could. So the bottom line is, even though it was a bittersweet experience, it was, I helped create a Terry Silver, but I also, felt that the character was appreciated in Karate Kid 3 a lot. I didn't do very much in Karate Kid 2. But in essence, to answer your question, the world of cinema, the people got to see 3 stories that they loved. One made more money than the other. It doesn't really matter that much. But they went on to do a Karate Kid 4, which basically, we don't.
It didn't do as well.
It didn't do as well.
It wasn't received as well.
No, but I mean, you had those 4 movies. You had 3 of the 4, and Back to the Future, and the Ghostbusters, and probably what I, offhand can't think about, and probably, the music. All the forms of escapism and pleasure were very rich in that period of time. Just like in the 50s, everybody was very happy. There was no more war. All the war was in the 30s and the 40s. And then the 50s were a period where Eisenhower was the president. And it was very...
The American dream.
The American dream, have 2 cars in a little house. And
green grass,
and you weren't on the fields in Normandy. You were not, fighting on Iwo Jima. You were actually...
barbecuing in your backyard.
You were barbecuing in your backyard.
Right.
And this was a release for most people, because everyone was involved in the war effort in the 30s and 40s in Europe as well as in America. So it was good. It was a good time, and I think that's what the 80s also represent, a similar emotional clearance like in the 50s.
And it served you and Thomas, who plays Terry Silver, really well. I mean, look what's come full circle from that. It's almost like how the world works in mysterious ways. If you didn't have that issue that you couldn't do the movie, Thomas would have never come in to play Terry Silver, and then here you are 35 years later, where he's now come into Cobra Kai, and there's this incredible elongated. He's now coming to Cobra Kai, and there's this incredible elongated storyline that's even more multifaceted because he's involved, and it just adds, to the drama and the intensity and the history of you two, which is fueling, partly fueling season 4 right now, which is a huge deal, and people are so excited to see that for you two. So it's just so funny how it all works out, and in the most beautiful way.
I think it's destiny when there's something like this that means so much to so many people. You can think of all the different television series, including the one I did, Hard Time on Planet Earth. So many other shows that are not memorable, that die in 13 episodes, that have the greatest intention of the writers to make a success. And then all of it, there were hundreds of them. And then they don't succeed. They don't have the elements that you just talked about. The writers who are the key think they do, and probably the actors do too, and yet it's not as identifiable as the Karate Kid, as Rambo, as a lot of things like Star Wars and Play It Again Sam, and all the classic movies that become classics in our family, in all families, because you can watch these movies. What constitutes a classic for me is that your entire family can go watch Star Wars 3 times in a row and appreciate it as much as you did the first time. You can do that with Casablanca. You can do that with a couple of Westerns like...
There's only a handful.
There's only a handful.
That you can...
The Godfather.
The Godfather.
Right.
You can do it with, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Harry Potter,
Red River, Lord of the Rings.
Pirates of the Caribbean.
Basically, I think what
go
episode
on,
1
but
is...
there's not that many. Of all the movies made, there are not hundreds of movies that made. Maybe we can name 25 classics, 25 pictures that we can all see 3 times in a row as a family, and then it constitutes itself as a classic. And those are the movies we remember the lines from, which usually feed right into a terrific picture. Because you don't remember the lines from movies that are not memorable. You don't remember those lines.
It's like what you said. I feel basically what season 1, episode 1 has done is it's just basically showing that destiny is real, and that even the destiny of Johnny and Daniel and eventually you and everybody else that exists, and they're creating upon that. And I think that's what's the beauty of the show and the episode.
Yeah, and I think that what the show is asking people to do at the end of this episode is, what are you fighting for? What are you fighting for in your life? What do you want to do with your life? If you're miserable, you're unhappy, you don't have to stay stuck there, but you do have to make a decision to change something. And I think that, if you're struggling with this, I want to give you some tips and tools for that. Something you can do that I do to this day is I write out a vision for my life of what I want. If you don't know what you want, think of a time in your life where you felt like you were contributing to something and you felt really, really good by that action, and then look at that action and see what that was. For me, it's like when I am helping someone create the life of their dreams, I feel like I'm sitting down with someone and I'm connecting with them. Okay, so really I'm loving connecting with people. So how do I create a career around connecting with people? Your brain needs direction to go in. So if you don't know where you're going, you'll end up anywhere. So sit down, write out a vision of what you want for your life. Get so specific. What kind of friends do you want? What kind of career do you want? Where are you living? What are you feeling? What music are you listening to? What do you physically look like?
I was just going to say, it also makes it just more tangible. Like, even when you say something like that, like, I want to be in a movie trilogy or whatever, it actually makes it more possible in your mind psychologically, because it doesn't seem so unattainable.
Exactly. And then when you're done with that, what I do is I record that vision of what I'm trying to manifest and create in my life. I record that into my phone. And then when I wake up in the mornings, I listen to that recording in my phone, and it completely programs my subconscious to start creating behaviors that are aligned with what I'm trying to create.
Okay, so bullet points again. You write down, very briefly, you write down
I
what
write
you
down a
want
vision of what I want for my life. I record it into my phone
with your mouth.
with my mouth. I use my words.
Okay.
And I say what I want as if it's already happened.
And then you play it for yourself.
And then I listen to it.
So put your phone under your pillow, listen to that on repeat for 6 to 8 hours, and it will magically appear.
Well, it's not magically. It's you take action towards that dream, right?
Yes. I love that.
Yeah, and I do that all the time. I listen to it when I'm running. I listen to it when I'm in the car. I use my time very intentionally. I don't waste it. So I think that's what Johnny is starting to do. I'm excited to see. I have already seen this season, so I already know how it's going to unfold. But we'll keep breaking down episode 2 next week. And I appreciate all of you here watching and listening. And I love you, Dad. I love you, Jesse.
Love you too,
We
Rich.
love you, Rich.